Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
This is Rogers TV, Durham Region. The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
This is your COVID-19 local update. I'm Deborah Hutchison in the Rogers TV studio. Joining us today, first up is Oshawa Mayor Dan Carter. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Deb. I hope you and your family are doing well. And please tell me that everybody is safe and making sure that our physical distancing is being abided by.
Oh, well, we certainly are here at Rogers TV, I can tell you that. Some good news this week. Well, actually, it was last week. We are taping this May 5th. And we learned recently that General Motors here in Canada, in Oshawa, will be retooling and setting up an operation to make facial masks, medical facial masks.
Yeah, it was a great announcement, but what I need to let you know is right from day one, Mr. Patterson, David Patterson, the Vice President at General Motors here in Canada, he was on the phone to me almost immediately. I think it was the 12th or the 13th of March, said, Dan, what can GM do? What do you need us to do? We're at the standby. We're ready to help in any way we possibly can. They were the first to be able to offer and supply us with their area to be able to do a drive-through test area for the COVID-19. And he was there to be able to make all the arrangements. We worked with the hospital to say this site has been selected. This site is ready to go. His team was ready to go. So it was wonderful to be able to hear all the hard work, all the way going back to early March that David had worked on with his counterparts, was able to come together here in the great city of Oshawa. I'm so proud of David and General Motors. This is a starting of a new beginning, I think, of how we may be able to prepare for the next pandemic, how we're going to provide PPE in our own community. And General Motors has always had a reputation as great quality, high productivity, and innovation. And once again, they've demonstrated that.
I think it's a mutual admiration society. We will be talking to him later on in the show, but he also credits you with going the extra mile to make this happen. And as we will hear later, he has told us that, you know, these things don't happen overnight. What had to happen at your end to allow this project to go forth?
I think it was is that we kept the lines of communication going. We made sure that whatever assistance he needed from the city, we also spoke to our MPs and our MPPs to talk about the importance of allowing General Motors to be part of the supply chain or logistics chain. David gives me a lot more credit than I'm probably entitled to. David and his team really drove this. The city played a supportive role, but we were always in constant contact with General Motors and just said, what is it you need from the city? What do you need from me as the mayor? How may I assist you? And we utilized our networks to be able to make sure that that happened. But the credit goes to David and his team. They were persistent. It was frustrating, but they were able to overcome those hurdles. And he said to me, he said, Dan, we will be producing PPE here in Oshawa, and we want to be a part of the solution as our country faces this historical moment. And he has not let us down at all.
Has he give you any indication how long they will remain there building the making the facial masks?
Yeah, Deb, I don't know, but we have to think to ourselves that our economy is going to change dramatically. Is this an indication that here locally we're going to be able to produce our own PPE and be able to supply all of our local businesses, our own residents, and of course our government facilities with PPE? General Motors has a facility that have dedicated individuals from Unifor that are really well skilled and trained and committed. They have the facility. I think you're going to see General Motors really play an active role in regards to PPE, along with the other things that they do really well as we move into the future. So I'm excited about the future, and I'm looking forward to our conversations with General Motors as we move through this.
Now, General Motors is not the only business that is retooled or turned things around in very difficult circumstances. Many local businesses have jumped in with both feet. All or Nothing Brewery now making hand sanitizer. It really says a lot about your business community.
It's amazing. You see these companies that are reinventing themselves to be able to meet the needs of the community. All But Nothing Brewery is a prime example. How they went from a brewery to a hand sanitizer and came up with, Eric and his team came up with an idea about how they could actually package it. There's faceguard.com or .ca, I'm sorry, that changed their business model to be able to provide face shields. We've got Fleur de Nord in downtown Oshawa that are making masks for the public. I mean, all of these companies are coming together because of the spirit of the moment, and they're meeting the challenges through their skills, their abilities, and their commitment to our community. And that talks about the DNA of the great city of Oshawa. They continue to be able to show that we can lead in so many different ways. I'm so proud of our community right now, not just in those examples, but the examples of generosity, kindness, service to our community. It's been extraordinary.
A lot being made today of the first steps of seeing some businesses back in action, garden centers, landscaping. People are really hungry for a little bit of normalcy in their lives. Is there a real danger of jumping into this too quickly?
Well, I mean, my public statement is that first and foremost, the safety, the health of our residents, our citizens, is the number one issue. All decisions will be made by the healthcare experts. Our province is having guidelines that are put out that are very methodical and in a slow rollout because we are not clear of COVID-19 at this particular time. So I am listening to our healthcare experts, and I'm keep on saying the health, the safety, and the well-being of our citizens and our residents has to be the number one issue. I said this earlier on today. It breaks my heart every single time I get a notice that we've lost another individual, a resident in our community from COVID-19. So that indicates to me, until we start seeing a 14-day drop in the number of cases, the number of people that are dying from COVID-19, that we have to listen to the health experts. We've got to be cautious, because the reality being is that if we do this incorrectly, we'll have devastating results. I do not want to see another one of the residents or their family members or their loved ones be lost to COVID-19. Let's make sure that we listen to healthcare experts. Let's be patient. And I know everybody wants to get back to work. I know we want to get back to some sense of normal, but let's listen to the healthcare experts. They know what they're talking about. Let's follow their guidance.
Now, in the meantime, Oshawa has formed a COVID-19 Economic Recovery Task Force.
Yes. And Deb, thank you very much for asking about that, because one of the ideas that I've always believed in is your voice matters, and the business voice matters right at this particular time. We're going to enter into a new economy. We better understand what our economy looks like right now. What are the assistance that companies need right now? And how do we help start preparing to be able to move forward? What are the things that we need to entertain, the things that we need to take under the microscope and say, this new business world is going to change our businesses dramatically? How do we help people through this period of time? And how do we make sure that we are there not just for the first 3 months of recovery, but how are we going to be there for the long haul? And the NARE's Economic Task Force on Recovery is a really important point, because I want to make sure our businesses locally have a voice. It also is important because we feed up into the regional task force that they've got, that Chair Henry has formed. And I think it plays an important part of making sure our businesses are represented. We're listening to the ideas and concepts and worries that they're thinking about, and that we actually make sure their voice is heard about it. It doesn't get just lost in a big bundle of 900 or 1,000 businesses. I want to make sure Oshawa businesses are heard, and heard clearly. I want to make sure that we represent the best way that they can. Take into consideration this, Deb, is when you look at the culinary industry or the restaurant industry, their business model is based upon how many seats and what a seat must generate. Mm-hmm. Well, what happens if the government says that they can only serve 1/3 of their restaurant? How are they going to make ends meet? We need to understand their business model, what their concerns are, so that we as government elected officials are able to advocate, educate, and make sure we've got the right programs in place to support our small businesses.
You know, the businesses I've spoken to so far are telling me that even those that are able to keep things going, whether it's, delivering outside the building and contactless delivery and dropping off, orders on somebody's porch, they're still just paying enough to make or making enough to make the rent. No more than that, they haven't been paid. What are you hearing from businesses?
I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing about a lot of innovation. I'm hearing about how people are doing extraordinary things to be able to meet the needs of the community, but they're worried about their future. A lot of these people have put their life savings into these businesses. They've put all their hopes and dreams into their own skills, abilities, and their innovation. And no fault of their own, COVID-19 comes by and our economy is shut down. That's why it's really important. We understand the importance of local businesses and local companies that invest in our community. They create jobs. Yes, they have tax dollars, but it goes to giving people an opportunity to have a healthy, vibrant lifestyle in the great city of Oshawa. That's why it's so important that the Mayor's Task Force on Economic Recovery has to be there, not just for a short period of time. I have the belief that my task force will be here until the year 2022. And I think that we've got to continue to see where we need to serve and how we're going to be able to support them. But I am also a landowner and a landlord. And we have small businesses that are renters of ours, and we're working hand in hand with them to be able to say, how do we help make sure that when the time comes that you're able to open up, what do you need from us as landlords, and how can we support you? Small business, family business, businesses that have invested in our city play such an important role. I'm asking everybody, buy local, support local. Tonight, do something locally, and that includes not only ordering or utilizing the services here locally, but support our local agencies that are doing great work, like Mission United, the Backdoor Mission, Gate 316, Sipcall Cinnamon House, the Refuge, and I could go on and on and on.
We're rapidly running out of time, but I want to ask you about your budget. Everything you've done to support the community. Municipalities, by law, can't run a deficit.
Right.
Does that have to change? How are you going to balance the books?
Well, I've been part of the chairs and mayors caucus meetings, and all of us are in agreement. We are not in agreement of running deficits. Cost containment is a big part of what we have to do day in and day out and understand. Also, this is where my philosophy 5 years ago about paying debt down, increasing our reserves, not spending a lot of money and just looking at how do we make sure we continue the services in our community are paying dividends right now. We've got a fantastic treasurer in Stephanie Sinnott, and her team have done a tremendous job. But as a fiscal conservative, these are the moments that really are going to test us. But I am bound and determined to make sure that we do everything right now so the impact on our residents is minimum, and that we will continue to be able to meet the obligations of providing great services, great programs at an affordable rate in our community. I am committed to that, and we've got to find a way of being able to do that. The federal and provincial government will need to be partners in regards to helping municipalities, not just our municipality, but municipalities all across Canada, be able to meet the needs of their residents. This is going to be a long journey. It's not going to be fixed in 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. And you heard from the federal government, they're running something like $250 billion deficit just in this fiscal year. We are going to have to work together to be able to solve the long-term fiscal issues. But I am convinced that together we can find the pathway forward.
If there's anything positive that's come out of this, do you feel like it's really helped different levels of government communicate and work together more than ever before?
I think so, but it's also brought the spirit of our community up. It's highlighted issues like homelessness and people that have addiction and mental health. It's highlighted the importance of our service agencies. I have seen neighbors and friends on streets that they've never met one another, meeting one another. I am seeing people care for seniors. I am seeing the best of our community come forward. I think it also has reminded us of the important things in life. And as hard as this is, I think that many people and families are experiencing really what the spirit of our city, our country really represents. And I am so proud not only of the great city of Oshawa, but I'm so proud of Canadians as we come together to be able to meet the needs. And I think we will never forget this. My parents were changed for a lifetime when they went through the Depression. I believe I will be changed. My kids will be changed, and my grandkids will be changed for a lifetime. We will never forget this moment. Okay. On that, Dan Carter, we will say thank you for joining us. And you take care of you. Thank you. You take care of yourself. All the best to your family, to your viewers, and of course, your team at Rogers Television.
Okay, thanks again, Dan. Stay with us. When we return, we are joined by David Patterson of General Motors of Canada.
My name is Stephanie Lorero. And I'm Ksenia Shpak, and we're the hosts of a new show here at Rogers TV called Socialite. We're here to keep you guys in the loop on all things trending, from social media to the latest tech gadgets and the wonderful world of Hollywood. We got you covered. Catch us every Wednesdays at 4:30 p.m. and Fridays at 6 p.m. only here on Rogers TV.
We are back with your COVID-19 local update. Deborah Hutchison here in the Rogers TV studio. Joining us now via video is Mr. David Patterson, who is VP of Corporate and Environmental Affairs at GM Canada. Welcome, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Deborah. Pleasure.
Now, the big news that has come out of GM Canada recently, you will be retooling and you will be making medical masks.
Yeah, we're working really hard around the clock, literally, as they say, to really install the equipment and to prepare for a real change at the Oshawa plant. It's not a huge portion of the plant, but it's a little area that's going to allow us to bring in about 50 people and train them up, and we're in the course of working on that. And we'll be making in the range of 1 million masks, face masks per month, and doing that over the course of the next year. So we'll have 10 or 12 million masks that we'll make for the Canadian government, and then they will make sure that they get distributed to where they're needed most.
So the Canadian government then is your client. What kind of masks? I know medical, like are we talking I-95 masks, or what grade mask?
Well, we're pretty good at making automobiles, and we're learning a lot more about medical equipment than we ever thought we would, for sure. And masks, we're all, I think, going to learn about masks, because we're all going to need masks as we get back to work and as we start to use public transportation more, and we start getting out to start our lives again. And we're certainly using them already, even in the Oshawa plant right now, where we've had a number of people in our parts business, which is the new reinvestment that we've made in the main portion of the Oshawa plant, and they're using masks. So there's a number of different types of face masks. And again, I don't proclaim any expertise on this, but as we've learned, as we've brought forward this idea to manufacture them, there are, you'll often hear reference to N95 masks, and these are masks that have a little bit of a plastic area on the end that helps with taking the baddies out of the air even more. N95 sort of stands for taking 95% of the different criteria out of the breathing pathway. We're making what is more of what's often referred to in the United States as a surgical mask, but it's a face mask effectively that also goes through a variety of testing. There's a number of different medical tests that are done to assess the mask's ability. We've done that in the United States because this whole project that we're doing in Oshawa really started with some pioneering that we did in putting a similar project together in Warren, Michigan. And in that project, they had taken some of the early production of the masks, and they've worked with the FDA in the United States, which in normal times would certify a mask, but when we're in these emergency procedures, they have the ability to sort of review it and you use labeling and a variety of other things to make sure that people understand how to use the mask properly, etc. So our masks will be for that probably 95% of mask uses that are out there. The N95 masks are probably for about 5% of the usage. For example, we use N95 masks in the Oshawa plant when we're using the paint plant because of the criteria emissions that are in the air there. But we wouldn't need that for regular getting on a subway or getting in a taxi. And so sort of 95% I've heard quoted of the type of need out there is for regular surgical masks.
So how long has this process been? You mentioned that you had been making the mask for a while now at your plant in Warren, Michigan, and there had been calls from local politicians, MPP Jennifer French among them, calling for them to be made up here at the Oshawa plant. How long has this process taken to get to the point where you're at now?
Well, we had, I would say, in mid-March or around that time, we had some work that was being done in Michigan to take a look at doing production of face masks. And so General Motors was able to actually design and develop the machinery to make the masks. We were able to use some of our supply chain capability. It's one of the great gifts that we have being in the auto industry is that we have huge supply chain orders of materials. So we were able to use some of those really dependable suppliers to get the type of fabric that we needed. And then we did the testing of those masks, working with the FDA. So all that was taking place in March. And towards the end of March in Canada, we heard the Prime Minister make a call to business. Can you help? I heard that. I work a lot with the Prime Minister's office and with others in the federal government. And we said, maybe we could do something here in the Oshawa plant. We have unused space in the plant where we have clean room capability, which is, as you would expect, it's an area where there's more attention to airflow and keeping an encapsulated area together. So we thought, well, let's look and see if we could do this in Canada. And we partnered both with the Ontario government, who were great, amazing, and also with the federal government, also amazing, in sort of saying, can we go quickly? What are the things they could do? And needless to say, they were very excited that we came forward and said that we would like to help. So we worked quickly. I think we had our proposal into the federal government in around the end of the first week in April with all the specific details. And believe me, there are a lot of details when you're looking at putting together a product that's going to be used in a medical setting, in an emergency like COVID. So we had to work through all that. We didn't pay, frankly, much attention to some of the local groups that were sniping around. I hope they're all happy and feeling that we were already there with the good intent before they wanted to take some shots. But that's their thing to respond to. For us, we just put our head down and said, can we help? So this was all something that we did. We didn't need to be asked or pushed. It's something that we feel fantastic that we can do, because in this time period, everybody needs to be, I think, looking at what can you do? Can you give $5 to a group here? Can you volunteer some time to help somebody online with something? And this is just our way of really making a difference and doing something that we're really going to need, which is millions and millions of face masks to help us be safe.
You also mentioned that you had to work closely with the city of Oshawa as well.
Yeah, I keep in touch with Mayor Carter all the time. We talk on weekends, we talk in the evenings. We've looked at all kinds of things that we could do to help as different healthcare responses come forward. One of the things we did early on at General Motors is we sort of put our hand up and said we would be a collection point for donations of extra PPE, like masks and gowns and visors, and we've collected those in our Oshawa plant from our suppliers and from dealers. And man, the GM dealers have been so generous bringing this forward. I've worked with Dan Carter to make sure that we could make sure that we're getting this to, for instance, Lake Ridge. And we've made a delivery to them of this shared PPE that's come from all over Ontario. We've done the same down at our CAMI facility in Ingersoll and gathered all kinds of masks there. We did a big delivery to our St. Catharines Hospital and to the Niagara Health Center down there, and same thing in Markham. And so we've been busy and doing our bit and just looking at what the need is and seeing how we can help to deliver on it. But Dan's been just a great leader in our community, and I can't thank him enough for reaching out and making sure that we work together. So we have a few more tricks up our sleeve of other things we want to do, and it's just a pleasure working with him.
So when will production begin? Well,
we hope in a week or so. We have this week, well, actually, at the end of last week, we had the equipment built in the United States. We had the supply materials from the United States, so we have a good, secure supply. The machinery was delivered to the Oshawa plant last week. People can take a look at our Twitter site and see pictures of it. We're installing that now. We've started to bring back some of our workers to start training. This is a very different type of thing to put together a face mask than it is to put together a vehicle. But we're confident that we're going to have some of the highest productivity and the best quality face masks, because that's what we do in Oshawa. It's just the quality of the people that we have. And I think the people that we've been able to bring back are really excited that they can be involved in this.
How did you choose which employees to bring back and which employees would be involved?
Well, one of our partners is Unifor, and we have an agreement that covers how we work in the Oshawa facility. And so they have processes in the union about seniority and who gets asked first. And so we work with them, and then we decide to bring back a certain number of workers and who comes first, and we work on that together. So that's all really working well. It's a bit of a change maybe for some of us in Durham Region that are used to seeing Unifor and GM maybe taking shots at each other, but we're working really closely together. And I can't say enough about Jerry and Diaz and the local partners that we have, because everybody just wants to do the right thing here.
Now, you said once this is up and running, you envision it staying there and running for about a year or so. What about the hours of operation? Are we talking 24/7 to make 1 million masks?
Yeah, well, it's at the moment the plan is to run sort of 2 shifts, so a very long day, sort of day and evening, and with 25 people on each shift, and a number of different workstations. In that area. We'll work 6 days a week, but we're going to work with the government in terms of what the needs are. If we need to ramp up or ramp down, we can do that in together working with the government. But our letter of intent, which was issued a week or so ago from the federal government, and we thank Navdeep Bains, and we thank the Minister of Procurement and Justin Trudeau for helping bring this thing forward. We intend to really start production as soon as we can get all of the technical details sorted out. And as I mentioned, when you're dealing with something that needs to be safe and something that needs to be properly reviewed by Health Canada, we're just going through some of those final aspects right now, and working with the government to sort of complete the final purchase orders. But under the letter of intent, we would expect to make 1 million masks over the rest of this year, okay. And ramp up to a pretty high clip of production fairly quickly.
David Patterson, I'm going to have to stop you there. We're out of time. Thank you for joining us. Our thanks also to Dan Carter and to you for watching. Until next time, I'm Deborah Hutchison.